Hey everyone, how you doing? This is Ryan Dunstan, and I have Mr. Kenneth Wilson here, my co-host, and welcome to the SpeakEasy
What's going
show.
on?
It is Monday, it's 9 p.m., and it's hard. It's time to get into some truth. So last week, we had a dope conversation, right? And I guess we might as well dive right into it. And so we had a
Yeah.
dope conversation, I felt, and the bulk of it was due to compatibility and whether or not it can be deceitful. Um,
Mm.
so and Kenny, you can remind me on your take in it. But just to summarize your point, I guess take a few moments to give your take on whether or not compatibility is a trap.
I mean, we talked about it last week, and I was pretty much saying that. I mean, yes, it can be because as we dove into things that we talked about, as we age, as we progress, as we mature, those things can change for us as well too. We may not be the same person. We may not be compatible. The things we want may not be the same things we want as we get older and things like that. So these things can change. But if we're not aware of those things, it can be a trap on both ends. If we're not in tune with ourselves, it can be. So we dug into a lot of that stuff, and then that conversation took us to some other places as we went a little deeper. You want to bring that up too, Ryan?
I do. I wanted to get your take on it just real quick because I do want to introduce the two guests and have them give their take as they introduce themselves. So Candice, please, could you please introduce our first guest that chose to come in and tiptoe on this word compatibility with us.
Okay, so our first guest, as you see in the middle, her name is Kizzy. She is all the way from San Antonio, Texas. So shout outs to you for being in a different time zone and being here with us tonight.
Yeah.
And then we also have
And tiptoe on this word compatibility.
Tremanda, who is also a member of Candy Coated Secrets as well, and She's here joining us tonight as well. We had another guest, but they had something else come up, which would I thought would have been dope because they were like younger than us, so we would have got to hear their little points. I might give them a call, but yeah. So go ahead. Who you guys want to introduce themselves first?
So Kizzy, I mean, you were the first that came up, and I would love to hear your take on it. I mean, do you feel compatibility is a trap or can be a trap?
I believe it can be a trap because you can think you're compatible with someone because you share some of the same interests or you may have some of the same energy level. But as you get to know the person, you find out, yeah, we're really not that compatible on a soul level.
Soul level.
Yeah.
If I could get you just to dive a little deeper into that, I would love to hear
Yeah.
where you're going with it.
Well, I am a minister. I love to say I'm not the typical minister because it's God is bigger than the box that people keep trying to put him in. And so when I say on a soul level, you don't necessarily have to go to my church or um, believe certain things. There are certain things that I do believe that do have to be on the same page. But when I say on a soul level, meaning aspirations, dreams, and goals, because I can go to church and sit next to someone who has no desire to move forward. And then I can meet someone at Starbucks who has the same dreams, ideals, and desires as I do. And they may not know who my God is or how my relationship with God works. So I can't just go off of somebody saying, I think you guys are compatible. I don't, no, not for me.
Mm.
I love it.
I like
I
that.
absolutely love that, and we'll dive into it because I actually have I have a take on that as well. But the next young lady, Kansas, could you please introduce our next
Tremanda. Hey,
guest?
Tremanda. Are you able to hear us? I know she was having some technical difficulties. Can you hear us? She's talking, but we can't hear you.
Yeah.
Go ahead. I'm gonna try to fix it.
Mm.
Well, I mean, while we're waiting, I'll go ahead and give my take.
Go ahead.
As I spoke about last week, I feel, because we're in this developing seasons, in our lives. And I believe that God, I love your take and the way you brung spirituality into it, Kizzy, because I too believe that Father works us in cycles. And I feel like our development,
We can't hear you either.
I lost you, Ryan. Can't hear you.
I don't know. I was like, what is
Well,
going on?
they don't want us to be great tonight.
They
That's
don't
all it
want us
is.
to be
Maybe we're
great
going to have a good
today.
conversation.
They don't want us.
Nah, ain't gonna have
They
a
don't
good
want us to
conversation.
be. They don't want us to be
Let's see,
great
we Ryan.
today.
So yeah. So all right. So he's still struggling on his.
Could be a
Okay.
trap too, because I think, can you hear me? You can't
Yes,
hear
I
me?
Yeah, we
I
get
can
you
hear you.
now.
You can
Hello?
go ahead and
Yep.
speak.
My thing just ain't crazy. I don't know what's wrong with it.
Go ahead. You can speak.
I can
So
speak.
so go ahead. They can hear you because it knocked them out too, child.
Oh, okay. But I also think that compatibility could be a trap too, because I think two people could be the opposite and still make it work.
Mm-hmm.
I think that compatibility is just something that society made you feel like it has to be. But I believe that two people can make anything work if that's what they chose to do. So I don't really think it has anything to do with being compatible.
Okay. Could you
Yeah.
could you guys hear her?
Yeah, I can hear. I'm here.
Okay. So she said that she thinks that people can be compatible, but it doesn't really have to necessarily be 100%. Is that what she was saying?
No, I believe that compatibility don't really have nothing to do with two people making something work.
Okay.
I think that if two people put their mind to making something work, they could do it without even being compatible, because there's a lot of couples that aren't compatible at all. And maybe they just grow into, figuring that out as, they go along. But two people that's not compatible could still work out. So I don't think everything is about compatibility. I think it's just a societal thing. I think sometimes society make you feel like that's the answer or that's what it should be, but it's not really that.
Okay. What's your guys
Yeah.
take on that?
No, I agree, and that goes back to into like the whole conspiracy theory. Oh,
Sorry, look. The devil is just busy
Candace, that's
today. We don't usually have all
yeah.
these malfunctions.
That's
yeah. All right. Is everybody still there? Can we hear everybody?
yeah, I can
All
hear
right.
you.
Yeah, I can
Let's.
hear you. Can you
All
hear
right.
everybody, Kizzy?
We're gonna make this work tonight. Yeah.
That's right.
All right. Um. So I think as we talking about compatibility, we go to this whole thing about like compatibility means different things for different people. We all have our own idea of what we think being compatible is. We have our own. We come in with these whole sets and like, this is what I want. This is what I think I want. And then you got to deal with somebody else, and they have their own set and beliefs and things like that as well too. So that's why I say it really doesn't make sense, because everybody has their own definition of compatibility. And I think that's what she was going to saying, where it's like two people can make it work without being compatible, because you can come together, you can figure it out, you can talk about these things and figure out what you want and what you don't want, what you're looking for, and work together to make it work. So I think we get caught up in compatibility. I think those are some of the things like labels and these categories that people in these boxes that they try to fit each other into and trying to make it work from these definitions of what we all think. But it's not a universal thing. It's not. And so, and that's why I think we get caught up, and that's why I think people they get so caught up, they get so clingy to these things, what they think they want at the moment, and we hold on to those things. And if that person is not what we think we want, then something is wrong. But that may not be the case. We're all different, and so, like I said, those things change as well too. So what I wanted 15 years ago is not what I wanted 10 years ago. Is not what I want today. I've changed. I've grown. It's been different. You know. And so if we're not in tune with that and part of our journey as well too, we don't really know. So until we figure that out for ourselves, how can we present to someone else and think that we're supposed to be compatible and have all those conversations and stuff? Well, we don't really know.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
I know.
think that
I know. Oh, go ahead.
no, I was gonna say I think that we're kind of just to throw it all in there because Kenny, you touched on the other 2 points, which was is compatibility based off the season you're in, and then
Yeah.
also are you really compatible or do you just share a similar pain or dysfunction or trauma,
Yeah.
which makes it seem like you are compatible,
Hmm.
but in reality, you have I guess it's healing.
Yeah, it's called that's
It's
called trauma bonding. A lot of people do that.
yeah, yeah, it's healing in this because the thing
Mm-hmm.
for myself, of course, we don't know that we're like you don't know you're necessarily in pain. All right, stay with me here. All right, so because you don't necessarily know that you're in pain, you end up making your selection out of the lens of pain. Now you get some couples that'll march through that season together, right? As you begin to change, of course, you're going to change, and then your spouse may not be willing to change at that particular time. But everything that you learned in that particular season, you should be able to kind of throw back your spouse's way to contribute to that healing. That's the reason why you end up becoming the other end of covenant, right? But you understand exactly how to communicate to that person as long as you were healing properly. You kind of mended all of the cracks and crevices that would have ended up bleeding on your spouse. You can correctly, communicate with your spouse in a way that you know specifically how, because again, you made your selection through the lenses of your trauma, right? And if you guys are sharing similar trauma, you know exactly what to say and how to say it to get it over to that particular person so that they can get over the hump that you just once got over, right? But you gotta be in sync for that. You gotta be in sync for that, and you have to be healing correctly for that, right? Now, I will also say you for the couple that is not necessarily choosing to heal together or choosing to grow together or just simply reacting. I do believe that they did make their selection, and because they didn't end up growing together, I do believe that that kind of ends up. I don't want to say just end it with saying, making the situation worse, but I do believe that, when you don't necessarily know what you're dealing with,
Yeah.
you can continue to bleed on other individuals. And that cycle just continues to repeat itself. Maybe you two break up, you choose another person, but then the cycle repeats itself just through a similar situation and a different circumstance.
Yeah,
What do y'all think?
because some people do grow apart. I've spoken with like it was funny because I spoken with like a few married couples, and the one in particular, he was saying that he grew to love his wife. He wasn't always in love with her when they met off the bat. It wasn't fucking leprechaun and rainbows. Sorry, Pastor, I got a potty mouth. But leprechauns and rainbows or whatever the case may be. And he was saying that it was just different things that taking place as to how he chose her, but at the same time, as time went on, that I think he said they were together for like the first 5 years or something like that. Now they've been married for more than 10. But he said that he had to grow, that he had to grow into that because when he met her, it wasn't he didn't look at her like, oh, this was going to be my wife, if that makes sense. It's something that happened, and it was like, okay, well, this is who, and this is who I'm gonna be. This is who I'm gonna be with, and he grew into that. And so now today, he says that their marriage, isn't perfect, but he do believe. I think kind of similar to what Tremanda was saying, that you can grow and to liking a person or becoming compatible or something like that. Maybe I should ask them to join the show. What's your
Well,
take on that?
I think that listen, it all boils down to when you get to a certain junction, right? Because if we're in pain and we don't necessarily know we're being affected by the pain that we're in, choosing out of the pain that we're in,
Mm-hmm.
right? When we don't know we're making those choices and we find out that we end up making those choices, will you have to make a decision? Will you go back and endure? Because in that process of you healing, you should have been able to obtain some humility, right? That's probably the first lesson you probably went through as your glasses began to shatter, just because you were in now a new beginning, a new awakening, a newer version of yourself, right? And that means killing the old version of you. So there should be automatic humility there, which should also create and produce some patience. But will you choose to use those things and endure the other person's trauma? Because they're not necessarily going to be automatically willing to just say, I'm ready to heal with you. You have to be able to become, right? Because then that's also a
Mm-hmm.
part of your process, becoming a better, communicator, and then operating in that gift of humility that you were given through the process of that old version of yourself dying, right? And then the patience that it took for you to grow and heal. You should be able to offer the person in front of you all of that. If I'm communicating that correctly, what do you think?
I wanted to interject real quick, and then I'll answer your question if that's okay. Um, Speaking on growing as far as through healing through pain, or however you put it. Excuse me, I'm paraphrasing, but when you're going through your healing, if I understood correctly, certain things should come to the surface or transpire within you to be able to communicate properly to your partner. Correct? Is that what I'm hearing?
Yep.
Okay, 9 times out of 10, that doesn't always happen in a lot. Well, I'm going to say marriages because I don't know a whole lot about the dating relationships. Um, but I know a lot in a lot of marriages, for instance, the one that I'm coming out of, the outgrowth, I should say, it was very severe, and the other person refused, like I said, to move forward. So at that point, you have to decide, because it has nothing to do with love or commitment at that point. Because yes, the relationships might have started in a painful place, but as both people are supposed to do the work to improve and to be a better person, at some point, if the other person doesn't get on board, well, what is type A person supposed to do? Are they supposed to continue in the relationship and meet that person at their level, or do they continue to work on themselves and go for their true joy and happiness? Because a lot of times those couples, it doesn't get any better.
I think that's a lot. That's a lot there, and
Yeah.
shout out to everybody that's chiming in. Please, the Speakeasy show. Shout out to Candice for allowing us to use her platform and Candy Coded Secrets. Please hit that heart button, hit the like button, share, share, share. Especially and chime in if you are if what we're talking about is interesting, because you just got deep with it, and I want to go with now. Yes, I do believe that there's a certain portion of every relationship where there is time to make a decision on whether or not you'll stay or you'll go. And there's nothing more powerful than the decision, because that choice is going to impact your immediate circumstances and your present, and your immediate future. So you have to be strategic and responsible with those decisions underneath a lot of pressure and feelings that you're probably feeling through, might I add, the lens of pain that you are trying to grow out of. So that's deep. It's a lot there. And I can't act like, I can't act like every situation is the same. So I don't necessarily want to generalize it,
Right.
because I don't want to make the mistake of kind of stumbling into that word pandering. But right, Kenny, I'm being careful. I'm on a gate
Look,
here. Make
you
sure I
look,
don't fall
look,
off, King.
look. Who's that?
Man, we here already,
With
man.
the goddamn self, cut it out. Yeah,
But
let
no,
people
listen.
think other
So
people things that they don't feel comfortable with.
so no, so okay. So, and what I'm saying is this: Are we um are we quitting too early on our relationships? Or should I say, let's say this, not let's say that there's been situations in every relationship where we made it out of, like we survived, rather
Mm-hmm.
than got what actually, or took inventory of what actually happened in the situation. Did we learn the lessons? Did we take the lessons with us, or did we just simply leave with the fence and chucked it up to agree to disagree?
Mm-hmm.
Right. So if we're absolutely processing these situations prior to these bigger choices that need to be made as we continue to evolve, because again, I believe that Father works us and grows us in cycles, then are we truly taking inventory of the things that we're supposed to be learning, so that we could utilize those things on new levels, bring new devils? right? And then that's when we begin to toy again with another level of communication and another level of intimacy,
Yeah.
and being able to communicate those things. Or do we simply, on the level we're on, just say, not necessarily say we gave up, but just kind of escaped out of a situation because of how uncomfortable it was to get to be in it. We just kind of was like, you know what, we out of it, we ain't going back. You know, let's not analyze a thing and let's not learn any of the lessons. Let's just leave that all the way back there. I'm glad we buy it. If I'm making any sense.
I think, like, to piggyback off of what she said, there does come a time where, you know, me personally, just like you guys, we're all representations of ourselves. I don't believe that love is supposed to be painful, and I don't believe that love is supposed to hurt. And that's only because
Not at
I
all.
believe that, you know,
Not at
God is love, and anything outside of that is an issue. But that's something else anyway. But that does have to come a time where you have to love yourself to not stay in some situations that is really like where there is no growth, where you're if it's only one person growing. It's a difference in somebody having an issue and you trying to work it out and you're trying to communicate that process to see what can be done. And then there are some people that just are stuck and they can't see. So a lot of the times I think we'll stay in situations that don't mean us any good because we can see the potential, we can see the growth. But if your partner can see it all day long and you can't, it's like, you know, you're gonna stay, or you're gonna stay and be unhappy, or are you gonna fold and throw the towel in? And it may not be, and just because it doesn't work doesn't mean that it's a no, it's a forever thing. It could be a just not right now type of thing. And you can always come back and revisit
Mm-hmm.
that. But
Mm-hmm.
I don't ever agree with anybody staying in something that's causing them pain. I'll never agree with that.
So there's a fine line there
Mm-hmm.
because um, I'm not even going to put this at, because this is where most people receive what I'm getting ready to say. They receive it through offense, because now we're talking about someone external from who we are. But we're really supposed to be loving from within, right? Right? So I'm gonna turn the mirror around on you. When you have to love yourself unconditionally, when you're getting over things like shame and guilt, right? And when you look back, when you really find out how you've been hurt, you got to look back over everything you've done and still choose to love yourself enough to do the hard work to heal, right? And as you begin to unlearn while simultaneously continuing to process to the today and today's culture and day and age, you're
Hmm.
simultaneously taking lessons and then kind of thrusting them into your reality, literally right then and there, which is all traumatic if you really want to be, if you really want to get critical with it.
Hmm.
But like all of it, let's put this into true perspective. Isn't that hard to do? That is hard to do. That is hard to do. It's hard to love yourself enough to discipline yourself when you didn't have structure as a young person, right? To be enough and say you don't need attention when it provided itself because you didn't have the right attention at home. Or just simply whatever the situation is that has grown up in your situation, or in your reality, right? What kind of pain has grew, what kind of pain grew up with you but because you never healed, and you never you just learned how to deal with it. You survived with it. You never really dealt with it, right? So, but all of those things are very, very difficult in yourself. But do we give that kind of effort to heal our counterparts? Is what I'm saying. Do we kick that kind of effort out to make sure that our foundation survives for our Black families, right? Or are we simply saying, I don't feel like kicking that kind of effort out because I know what it takes to do it in myself? Or are we saying, I know exactly how to do it, and I know exactly what it feels like because I got to give that kind of patience, kindness, and empathy to myself? Which one are we choosing there? Because there are moments in every relationship where we begin to evolve, right, in new levels, and begin to grow into new individuals, new versions of ourselves, that we learn lessons that are there that we can choose to endure the person's pain from the lesson that we just grew out of, offer them the empathy, the patience, and the understanding, which should create the healing, right? Because now that I'm not saying that that situation is going to work in every situation, right? In every circumstance. But what I am saying is, Are we learning on the smaller levels, taking inventory, grabbing what we need, so then when we get to a bigger level and a bigger problem and a bigger devil, we know exactly how to fight at that thing, rather than responding to our brokenness and our emotions, and that's in another
I think you
traumatic
gotta work
cycle.
on yourself. I mean, well, I know for me, I had to do the work on myself, and I think it's circumstantial, depending upon the relationship, because you just do have some people that just don't want to change. You have some people that are just stuck in their ways, and whether you could hit them in the head and tell them what's going on, or they can see it, and they just can't seem to see it, or they haven't reached that point of brokenness to want to change. But I think with anything, you're supposed to love yourself 100% unconditionally, work on you, do all the work. And I'm big on being the energy you attract, and then you'll attract those new things and those new experiences and those new people into your life, and realize though you may not have to deal with some of the stuff that you've dealt
Hmm.
with before. Now I can speak for me, like when I've started making changes, I'm not perfect. I still come up against hiccups. And the one for me that is always hard is the fact of, if I've been somewhere before, if you know what it looks like, is it worth me sitting? Are you worth me? I don't even want to say are you, but is it worth me sitting here taking 20 step backs from self, because I've already been putting in the work, and I've come and I've grown from this place, to see if I really want to sit here, because this is where you are, and stop and hinder my growth. I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that. But it's definitely hard to to follow some of these things and do them, because we aren't perfect and we do make mistakes. But at the same time, it's like, if being with you is hurting me more than being in a relationship, then we don't need to be together right now, or something has to take a change right now. Because I think some people get it mixed up with pain. I
Hmm.
think people, because some people do feel like, oh, love is supposed to hurt, and then you sit here and you with somebody that's just taking you through all kinds of shit, and you like, wake up. This cannot be loving. This man putting his hands on you cannot be loving. This man or this woman not coming home at night, you sharing your husband or your wife or your girlfriend with somebody. This is not loving. Like, this is, you bringing other women and men into our home. That can't nobody tell me that that's loving. That does not feel good. So I do believe that there's those one-time offenders that may slip up and mess around, and then you have repeat offenders. But I think that anything that is really truly killing you and hurting you and making you feel uneasy, it's not good.
Yeah, listen, that's I can't give you the truth on, because that's going to be relative. There's a lot of perspective that needs to be provided there. You can't generalize it. But what I will say is this: a lot of times those decisions are being repeated, right? So when you didn't study back in middle school, right? And but you failed your final, but it didn't really affect you. But when you
Mm-hmm.
got in high school, right, you didn't study, but you failed that final, it affected you a little differently. So on and so forth as you begin to get a little older, right? If you are the same choice you're making not to study in
Mm-hmm.
middle school, right? Learning that
Mm-hmm.
lesson every time you fail is the very same way you bite yourself when you choose the guy who is doing exactly what that choice not to study is doing to you, right? So you have to, and when I say take inventory, I'm not saying every situation is going to work. I'm saying that if we did choose a bad situation out of compatibility or how we were hurt similarly, right? And we just were in comfort in those moments. Are we taking inventory when the situation breaks, right? Are we saying to ourselves, the same choice not to study is the same choice to choose this dude who did exactly what not studying did to me when I was younger? And am I going to stop? Why, first of all, why do I keep whys matter? They're very powerful. Why power is stronger than willpower. So
Right.
knowing why, it will help you
Oh yeah,
stop it,
definitely.
right?
Yeah.
So what I'm saying is, why do I keep making the decision to bite myself the same way I bit myself when I didn't study back in middle school and high school, but
Hmm.
then the same way I'm biting myself
Hmm.
and choosing the dude that I'm deciding to love,
That's a self
right?
thing.
It,
Exactly. It's
I can tell
traumatic
you
to
one thing.
love yourself enough to continue to hurt yourself because you said, my problems are hurting me, right? You said that it's dangerous for me to stay in a situation where they keep hurting me. But what I'm asking you is, if you took inventory, you wouldn't find yourself in it again.
Yeah, but again, also, yeah,
Not,
that's true. But also, until you life give you lessons, and until you pass the test,
yeah,
you're gonna keep getting it. It doesn't
yeah,
matter who it is.
yeah,
Different. Everybody comes in your life to
yeah.
teach you something. Everybody's for a reason or a season. And yes, you do have to stop and take the inventory and say, you know what, I want to pass the test this time. So that's when I go into God. Help me. Help me to see this the way you want me to see it. Let me see it from your lens. What's the perception? Let's try to figure it out,
Mm-hmm.
because I like to pass tests, and in certain tests I don't want to keep experiencing, and I don't like, and I haven't
Mm-hmm.
had to re-experience.
Mm-hmm.
So those are those moments, but everybody does not. Everybody's not sitting and available to take these tests, because everybody's not woke, as I like to say. Everybody's not
Yeah.
woke. So it's like,
Mm-hmm.
I think for those people who are doing the self healing, who does work on self, yeah, I think we take inventory every day. I take inventory every time my boss get smart. Like, hold on, wait a minute. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? All relationships,
Mm-hmm.
how you show up in everything. Relationships at work, your relationship in the house, relationships, and business
Mm-hmm.
relationships. All of them are forms of
Mm-hmm.
relationships. So I'm constantly working on how am I going to show up in the ways that you need to show up, so that you can show up in all of these areas of your life. Because even issues at work, everything, they're all reflections and mirrors of ourselves, and areas that we could grow and need to improve on. So yeah.
Every portion of it, right? And when you focusing on the fact that, and Kenny, hop in here with me, because again, I'm a
Well,
firm believer that energy is transferable, right? So whatever I decide to start putting out into this atmosphere, everyone around me you have to begin to react to, right?
And then we can go to the
And
comments for some guys, because they have some really good
yeah, because
comments.
and that's what I'm kind of getting to, because LeBrent said, how long do we wait, right? I'm not asking you to wait. I'm asking you to take inventory the moment you have a bad situation, right?
Yeah.
Those bad situations, they may not be big in magnitude,
But
but they may mean a lot, right? They may give you a lot of value if they're supposed to be lessons. So when me and my wife have a little situation, am I truly learning what went wrong in that malfunction and then taking it on to the very next challenging situation? Or out of my selection, if it's one of those situations where I have to break because I keep on fighting with myself about something that keeps biting me in return because I keep choosing in a certain way that I'm hurt, that I don't really realize it's in my blind spots. Well, you know, you make a choice. You make a choice to endure and push through for yourself, get over guilt, anger, and all of that kind of stuff. Well, the person, if energy is transferable in a good way, it's also transferable in the bad ways, which means we begin to project ourselves onto the person in front of
oh,
us. That's the reason why
absolutely.
we kind of end up parenting our kid. We kind of end up parenting ourselves out of our kids. But when we begin to see how wrong we've been in certain circumstances, do we use that empathy and humility and then give it, which kind of comes off as grace to the person in front of you who's broken, and choose to deal with that situation a little differently?
maybe let's hear from our guests. Let's see what our guests have to say. Just jump in there. Anybody
I'm
here?
sorry, I couldn't hear the last part.
No, I said we're just trying to see. What do you think?
No, I
Like,
well, what I was saying, because I'm gonna go back for just a couple, because I didn't get to jump in there. When Ryan was asking, if you take inventory, not we have to remember that not everybody, like Ms. Vibrations was saying, is woke to stop and take inventory, to know that they need to look within themselves to see what may be causing a situation to go awry or whatnot. What I have learned over the years, when it comes to situations that keep repeating, because like we've been saying, if you don't pass the test, the lesson's gonna come again. In every situation, even right now on the podcast, there's a lesson to be learned. I'm always asking God to help me to make sure I learn the lesson, regardless if I know I've learned it or not. Because sometimes we learn things inadvertently, and sometimes we learn things purposely. So I'm always asking that I'm learning whatever the situation is. And now when it comes to and when you say enduring or dealing with the individual that may not be ready to move at your pace. I think it depends on the level of commitment and love that you have in that relationship, as far as waiting on someone to move at a certain pace. Because I know that in, say, for instance, just a friendship, I may be ready to, go over here and start this business and interact with some other women that are on that level. It doesn't mean that my friend is no longer my friend. She's not going to go with me in this season or into this space. Now, it is different when you're in a relationship or you're married to that person. Then you have to sit back. That's when the inventory comes in, because now you're looking at your long-term goals. And if this person isn't willing to shift or adjust, your love life may be great, but then you still have to consider the things that you want to do going forward. So if the relationship is worth it, then you work at it. If it's not worth it, you continue to work within yourself. And again, you ask whatever you need to ask to get out of that situation. For it was for me anyway. Because if you truly love somebody, you're not going to hold them hostage in a situation just to be with you. If you truly love that person, you say, hey, I see you, God is taking you in a different direction. I'm going to rock with you. I'm here regardless. I'm not where you are yet. I want to get to where you are, but I'm not going to stop you from where you're going. I think a situation like that can work. But if you've got someone putting their foot down, now you and Jesus can go fly a kite, I ain't going, it probably ain't going to work.
Yeah.
So that's where I was coming from. But there's a lesson to be learned in everything. It's just, are you willing to learn the lesson? And you can't properly love someone if you can't properly love yourself. Yep. I heard you saying that getting over griefs and emotions and learning to forgive yourself, that's one of the hardest things that I've learned or that I've seen in working with different people. We'll forgive everyone else, but we won't forgive ourselves.
It's so hard. It's so hard.
God forgives everything and everyone. So if God can forgive you, who are you not to forgive yourself? He doesn't want to remember your sin from the east to the west, is what the word says. So you have to learn to love yourself just as you are and forgive yourself daily. I had to do daily affirmations and daily forgiveness for myself for things that I had nothing to do with, but I allowed people to put that pressure on me and made me feel guilty about it.
Yeah.
That is exactly what I was saying. Kenny, where are you at with all of this, man?
I mean, I'm in agreement with y'all. I think, it starts
you guys,
with us. It always starts with us.
I'm going to also try to call the other guest too, so that because she has something she wants to say too.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
No, go ahead, Kenny. After you.
No, I was just saying. Like I said, I agree. It starts with us. We're working on ourselves. That's constant. We're doing that at all times. That's never going to end, right? But I also do feel like there are times when relationships do run their course. Like I said, with friendships, business, work, things like that, and even sometimes in our romantic relationships as we're working together. As you guys were talking, I was thinking about, dang, how many relationships was I in until I found my wife? And if I had a fall in love, stayed with the first person I ever saw in life, I would not be here right now. And so sometimes we do come out of relationships. Sometimes God puts us in relationships to learn and grow, and it may be finite. It may have an end date on that relationship. Yeah. I think that's how we work through it, So sometimes it is healing, it's learning. Yeah. God uses other people in different ways and shapes and forms for that sometimes as well. So I think we have to keep that in mind, but we should be putting our best foot forward, working on ourselves at all times, healing, doing everything we possibly can, so that when we do get with someone else, where that's the same energy we're taking into those relationships. That's what it's supposed to be. But I know, as Pastor said, it doesn't always happen. I think that's the reality.
I have our guest on the phone. You can go ahead and you can speak. You guys, thank y'all for being with us through this technical difficulty.
Yeah.
Okay,
it's a Monday.
Can you guys hear?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead.
I'm sorry, y'all.
Yes.
I'm on bootleg, everything going nuts over here. But I agree with Ryan as far as like pulling up your partner or pulling up your husband, wife when those times get tough. But it is a time like at some point where there has to be progress made when these problems do come, because you don't want to spend a lifetime or too much time breaking your own self down, trying to pull a person up, and then you're broken. So I feel like it has to be some kind of progress. You have to see some type of progress being made to move forward before you're just standing there trying to pull up a person, breaking your own self down.
Yeah. You guys hear her?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I'm
I
yeah.
did.
But also, let me throw out there too. I know we're talking about, like when, but there's also other situations. What about safety? I think I said that last week. Safety is another issue. What if it's not safe to be in that relationship anymore? Physically safe.
Yeah.
Emotionally safe. Like, I think that's another thing to account for. If it's not safe, you have to make a decision at that point as well. You know.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that listen, this is not, you do not hear me saying that a person should stay in a relationship that is causing them physical pain. That is not what you hear me saying. You do not hear me saying that you should stay in a relationship that is causing you an overwhelming amount of emotional or mental pain either. What I'm saying is, um, you know, I think that you're gonna know better than anyone. I don't think anyone can just out from the outside look in and say you got to do this, and this. I think there are a lot of tangles, and a lot of knots that need to be untied and uncoiled and all kinds of things to get to the real root of those issues. But what I am saying is, if we do choose to process how we forgive ourselves, how we try to change ourselves, the patience, everything that we have to endure with ourselves, and the same grace we have to offer ourselves to continue to get to that next level. I'm saying that if we normally, if we're able to correctly communicate everything that we've been able to learn and everything that we've had to offer ourselves to get to that level, I think that a lot of our situations will kind of organically unfold a little differently, because again, there are a lot of layers to a breakdown, right? Somebody might have heard one word wrong and then reacted to that one word, didn't really hear the entire phrase or misunderstood the entire message, and then all of a sudden we have a whole breakdown over something so minuscule. So what I'm saying is, if we choose, because you can choose not to be and you can choose not to be angry, or you can choose to go be angry in another space so that you can correctly have that conversation to my men, right? And then, because I know my females, man, I want to have that joint immediately. Correct me if I'm wrong, Kenny. Are you one that feels an emotion that I cannot be the only person that has to say, I need like two, give me maybe an hour, give me like an hour, maybe two, right? I'm dancing on my
It
emotions,
depends
and
upon
you
the
are not going
argument.
to get the critical
Yeah.
thinking, Ryan. You're going to get the guy who's dealing with everything that's pulling on his heartstrings at the moment, right? But are you emotionally well enough to admit that, right? Most men, we don't like to feel no way, so we're not gonna act like we ain't got it all together. We're just gonna end up bursting in the situation and then making the entire situation worse for ourselves. So what I'm saying is, yo, can we correctly process while we're feeling uncomfortable? Can we be wise enough to say to ourselves, like, yo, we've never really done anything positive out of our emotions. Let's take a step back. Let's admit in the moment, hey, yo, listen, let's communicate. I know you might not like this, but I'm not feeling this. I can't have this conversation right now. And I know you want to, and I respect the fact that you want to. But if you really want to have it and not us just look crazy in it, let me take these moments, because we ain't going to get none out of it. Now, she might not like what she hearing, but she has no choice but to respect that, right? Because don't nobody on earth, can nobody sit here and argue back and forth with me about the sky being blue. You feel me? So what I'm
You
saying
love
is, can we
that.
present the truth
Yeah, you do.
just differently? I want to, because once I show you something, you can't act like you unsee it,
Well, that's
right?
what
If
I
I can
told
get you to
Stephen.
start
Sometimes
reacting
you
to the
gotta
way you
believe
deal
people
with
when they show
yourself,
you
you
who they
can
are.
react differently to the person that's in front of you differently.
Well, that's why they say you gotta believe people when they show you who they are.
Yep.
I
But that's not who
Very
we
true.
are.
feel
We
like
changing.
you do.
Somebody was saying something.
Oh no,
No,
I
I
it's
hope
think
I
it's an
didn't cut
interest.
him off. I heard somebody say, I think you do something. But
yeah.
no, what I was saying was, yes, we're forever changing. We're forever changing, so we're forever becoming. We're forever in the becoming stage, right? That's supposed to be how this whole spiritual thing is supposed to be working. Born in sin, shaped in iniquity. We're supposed to be becoming for the rest of our lives until we get to the next level spiritually, right? So if we are constantly becoming, we're constantly changing. God works in flow. He works in cycle. He ain't never staying still. Time is a formula no man can break. So we're everything is flowing. Everything is constantly moving. You have to constantly find a newer version of yourself every situation that you become in conflict with. And so what I'm saying is, if we have to become every second, all of every day, in new moments, why are we not offering that same level of grace that we give ourselves, man? Right? Because listen, I'm gonna be honest and I'm gonna keep it 100. I'm not about to sit here and act like I don't struggle with this too. I'm just being honest enough to say this is present. I'm dealing with it. All right. I don't have it figured out, but I'm fighting with it too. Because I can cut somebody off in 95, fully understanding what I'm trying to do and where I'm trying to get to. But then the moment that person cuts me off, that's
You
a
pissed.
completely different perspective. It's all the way different. Do you see what I'm saying?
Well, of course,
Sometimes
a
it is
lot of times
hard to
people don't
offer that
like
grace in
stuff.
those moments.
But people don't like, but a lot of times too, you have those who they could do everything, but you better not do something back to them.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And when you fight with enough of those moments, right? Because you're not gonna win every one of them. I'm not sitting here acting like I done figured it all out. What I'm saying is, I figured out a way to fight. That's all. And the way that I have been fighting, fighting for the best way to communicate with my wife in an uncomfortable situation, is simply learning, like, even if you did win the last battle, what did I really get out of it? Like, did I?
Yeah.
Like, oh, I got a chance to walk around with my shoulders back a little bit, my chest out, talking about, yeah, I was right about that. And I fought her all the way down, tooth and nail, for her to just simply say I'm right, but didn't change no bit of reality, just wasted all our moments that's supposed to be shaping our future. Like when you start thinking about it differently, you just start giving a different you to each moment, right? And that normally transfers organically to the next person. So as you change, that person does too. Do you see what I mean? If we're doing it correctly. So back to the question that LeBrant had, I don't think there is a timeline. I think that if you're not experiencing the change that you want to see, reevaluate your own footsteps. Try your best to communicate properly and this doesn't necessarily just have to be you. I mean, of course, look for that therapy, look for that mediator, look for someone to come in and step in and be a even even give you an even understanding and an even perspective, overlooking the entire situation. But if you're changing, the person in front of you should be too, because they have to start reacting to a different you, and that should tell you everything you need to know about when you should get out of a situation and when you should stick one out, right? Because if you're seeing those changes in your counterpart, but it's not necessarily happening as fast as you want to, if you're seeing changes, you can live with those. You can live with that. I can live with. All right, bet. I can live with that. She getting on my nerves today, but in the grand scheme of things, I love her. It's working. Fight through that. Do you see what I'm saying? But those things should be normal to you. Those things should be something that shouldn't be. There isn't any. You don't have to write a dissertation on that. You should be able to pick that up in your own day to day, in your own walk with that particular person. Am I on an island? Y'all not saying too much.
I was
I
letting
think
everybody else
also,
speak because there's so many delays.
I think also it's about yeah, a little bit, right? When you were saying as far as being right in the situation, it didn't really change anything. I know what I used to try to do, what I still do is, what's right versus who's right. Let's take out, who wants to be right, what makes the situation right and better. That solves and calms everything really, really quick, and you both walk away winning because it's not about who is right, but what is right in the situation and for our relationship and where we're trying to go. So that's helpful as well when you take
Yeah.
you out of the situation and just look at the situation.
Yeah.
Yeah. My life coach, she always like if I have a call and I'm having a moment, and she always like, hold on, let's process what happened. Let's process what happened. Not
Yep.
take your feelings and everything
Yep.
other, but what happened. Okay, this is what happened. All right, so this
Yep.
is what happened. So anything else? Because a lot of times, anything else is just stories we make up in our mind of how things went and how it was supposed to have
Hmm.
been and who said it. But we do have to really break down and say, no, this is really what happened. This is what happened right here. You forgot to take the trash out for the 10th time this week. You know what I'm saying?
Oh my
Yeah,
gosh. Man, we gotta get off of them
right.
little moments,
You know,
man.
emptying the trash.
Kenny, how you feeling about all of this, man? This is like I said, this is not a conversation you can have in 5 minutes. It ain't even a conversation you can have in one situation because it's so chunky. It's so much meat here.
Yeah.
It is layered, but I think the fact that we're having the conversation first, you know, some people need to this may be their starting
Right.
point. You know, this may be their first time hearing some of this information, and so at least we're doing it now. You know, so hopefully this gives someone the opportunity to receive some of this stuff. So you know, I think we'll continue these conversations in the future. I mean, we got a whole platform for this now, so we'll keep it going. But I think everything. I think we're all kind of saying the same things, right? And we're all giving different perspectives on the same things. And so, if nothing else, at least receive this message, y'all. I think for anybody listening to this, watching this, I think that's what it comes down to. You know, for me, I always look at two things. You know, I look at things pretty kind of twofold. Myself, every day, I'm looking in the mirror. I'm focusing on what am I doing? What do I need to do? Where am I going? Right. But
I
I'm
know
also
that you
doing the
must
same thing
see some type of
for,
progress. You you have to see
yeah.
some type of progress when you know you guys decide that of who.
Can you guys hear?
It's breaking up on me.
Yeah, it's
Is
breaking
that just
up.
on my end?
We're gonna have to do this
Yeah.
again, and we're gonna be clear with all this. You know, this happened the first time we had such a great conversation. Remember, it was always malfunction.
Yeah.
The devil don't like
Yeah.
it.
Well, listen. All right, listen. We got 3 minutes, and Kenny, I know you got to get out of here, but before we do, right? We started off this conversation briefly. Well, we tiptoed into this conversation thinking that because of the way things ended on our last conversation, when I said that the proper representation of who you are up front has to be perceived correctly in order for that right person to walk into your situation. Well, hopefully throughout this conversation, you are able to provide perspective to what I meant by that, right? I'm just simply saying applying common sense to your day to day. To the young ladies on that joined us today, thank you. And hopefully you understand what I mean from my perspective today, what I may have meant, right? How I meant it and why I mentioned it. Hopefully you understand why I said what I said.
Ryan, I don't think this part of our conversation wasn't what they were mad at. We're gonna have to deal with that part another time. What we
But
said
you
did not
get
come
what
across
but
as
you
hate.
get
I
Right,
listen.
that
I
right,
get you. It's
Kenny.
fair, but it was when we started talking about appearance and things like that. Not what appearance. That's when my DMs were flooded last week. That's when I was getting beat down all week. But yeah, that's a whole other conversation. We're going to do that one.
I will show you how I'm linking the two, but I get you. I get you.
Yeah,
You
we
know
can,
what I'm
we
saying?
can
But
follow
that's
up
what I'm
with
saying.
that.
Yeah, but it's like it starts here. It starts with
Yeah.
the conversation we just had. That's where the root is, and that's how we lead into that second part of it.
Yes.
So if you're listening, y'all, whoever was beating me down last week, y'all, this is how we started. So receive this, and hopefully it makes sense as before you get back in my DMs, y'all. That's all.
You're right. We didn't mean no harm, man.
What did
But
you
thank
say?
We're
you
just trying to tell
again.
you.
I
He
don't
said, I'm not willing to bet my future on if you're gonna have a hot girl season
And
Come
that's
on,
all I
man.
got all week.
Y'all just giving the highlights on one part because
or not.
y'all
That was
making them
funny.
believe a certain thing.
It was
All right, all
good.
right. So listen, thank you to the guests that we have today.
Thank you guys.
Thank y'all for joining us. Hopefully you all have enjoyed yourselves. I enjoyed listening to your perspective. I'm Ryan Dunstan. This is
Kenneth Wilson.
Mr. Kenneth Wilson. This is the SpeakEasy Show every Monday night at 9 p.m. Shout out again to Candy Coated Secrets for allowing us to use her platform. Tune into her show on Wednesday nights at 8 p.m.
Yes, at 8.
My bad. And I hope to see you guys next week. This is a dope conversation. Too much meat on the bone for us to get through it this evening, but we will continue to chip away at it, guys. Thank you for joining us.